Agenda. Let's start online with board members, and then we'll go to the room, and then board members, and then we'll go to staff and come back to staff online after that. So I'm Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County Commissioner and Chair, and I'll pass it over to Randy.
Randy Nevlin, Mason County Commissioner.
Great. Good to have you here. Dave?
Dave Tobin, Pacific County Commissioner.
Great. Good to have you here. And Jaren? I haven't met you yet, but who are you
I'm
representing?
Jaren. I'm here. I'm kind of Yakub's replacement. I'm working with Jeff. I'm an attorney for law alignment, so I'm just here to help out with Jeff and everything like that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here. And Ryan, you want to say hi?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Siu, a representative from Lacey.
Great. Good to have you here. And Jeff, you want to take us through the folks that are in the room?
Sure. In the room with me, I'm Jeff Johnston, Executive Director of ORCAA, and in the room with me, got Debbie Moody, Operations Manager, Tiffany Flores, Record Specialist, and ORCAA's Public Records Officer, and taking minutes this morning, Mike Schultz, Compliance Manager, Odell Hadley, Senior Air Monitoring Specialist, Tyson Justice, Finance Services Manager, and that's all of staff. But we've got a couple board members or representatives here in the room with me. So go to Clark.
Yeah.
Sure. Clark Gilman, an alternate for City of Olympia.
Good to
Hi,
have you
I'm
here.
Kelly. I'm Kelly Adams, Assistant City Administrator for Tumwater, and I'm here to support Joan Cappy.
Great. Thanks for being here. Is Emily back in the room?
Nope, she is not. She thought it
Oh,
would
right.
be
She's
about 10-15 or so since she had the conflict. And also,
Okay.
let me just mention other staff. Have Dan Nelson, ORCAA's Communications Manager, listening in remotely and running Zoom from upstairs, and Chris Kraus, ORCAA's IT System Administrator, is also listening in.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for that. And we'll.
And your legal counsel is present as well.
Oh, great. Jeff's in the room.
Jeff Myers from Law Lyman. I did want to just take a moment to introduce Jaren a little bit. Jaren is a 2025 graduate of Seattle University Law School. He joined us last year and is going to be taking some of the enforcement cases to the Pollution Control Hearings Board that Jakub Kosters previously handled. Jakub has decided to go be a tax lawyer and has enrolled in the Masters of Law program at the University of Washington. So he has decided to pursue that in lieu of staying at Law Lyman. And so we wished him well, effective the first of the month. And so we're going to be transitioning a lot of his caseload to Jaren.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Jeff, and welcome, Jaren. Great to have you here. I see Mike French joined us as well. You want to say hi, introduce yourself, Mike?
Hey, I think I clicked the wrong Zoom link, but I'm here, Commissioner Mike French, Clallam County.
Sounds like you're a little hoarse too. It's probably good that you're remote today. All right. With that, I will move on to approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions? If not, I'd welcome a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve today's agenda.
Been moved by Dave, seconded by Ryan. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion passes. We have an agenda. We'll move on to the chair report. And since Emily is out for her budget meeting for a few minutes, I said I would cover that finance meeting that she chairs as our vice chair. And it was, I think, as we noted during the meeting, one of the fastest finance committee meetings we've ever had. We've been looking through the budget a lot. We'll have the first presentation here today. Staff has been really proactive in reaching out to stakeholders about this budget because it does include some fee increases, and so far we've had no public comment or testimony on the open budget hearing that we have, or we're open for public comment. There was talk about establishing a legal contingency fund, which we will bring back in October, which is the next finance meeting in October. So there was also a few slides that I didn't see in the presentation that Tyson presented, kind of answering some of the questions from the finance committee about, what's a unit, an average unit of staff and benefits cost. It was really helpful. I'm not sure if I missed those in the package, but Tyson sharing those as we go through the budget process with the rest of the board, if they're not available, would be great. Any questions on the finance committee? For the finance committee? Okay. Well, seeing none, I'll go on to the one other kind of significant issue that is upon us right now, and that is recognizing an employee of ORCAA, Debbie Moody, who's in the room there. And I'm sorry I can't be there with you, Debbie, but she is, I think, the longest tenured employee, coming up on her 35th anniversary, and it's super impressive. And I want to say a few words that, Jeff provided me some stats about what happens when you work for an organization for 35 years. And, other than my marriage, I've never been in any relationship as long as Debbie has served ORCAA. So it's really impressive. And, just a few of the details, because she has been to, she came on in 1990 as a secretary, an admin. She's been immediately tasked with taking minutes at board meetings. So 35 years of board meetings, 10 meetings a year. So Debbie has been to almost 350 board meetings, and actually had to pay attention through the whole thing too. So a very impressive record, and even more impressive that I have not heard before, but apparently any birthday that happens for ORCAA staff, Debbie makes a homemade cake for them. So, with about 15 employees and 35 years, Jeff's math was that Debbie has made more than 500 birthday cakes for ORCAA staff, and that is a number that is staggering in its benevolence and calories and everything. So, I want to take a moment here at the board meeting. I know the staff has something really, planned to recognize Debbie, but can we just take a moment to give Debbie a round of applause, please? With that, I don't know, Jeff, do you want to say a few more words? And then I don't know if Debbie wants to reveal the secret of her longevity or anything, but I want to give a little space to Debbie after staff or anyone else can take a moment just to recognize all she has done for the organization.
Well, I'll just say that Debbie very much is again, being here for 35 years, you've been involved in so many different things that the agency's done. You ran our asbestos program for a couple of years. You're opacity certified. You've been out on inspections. You just understand the work that we do so well. And you're very much dedicated to the agency and ensuring that we succeed and that we do the work that we need to do. So we're lucky to have had you for as long as we do, as we have, and hope you're not going anyplace anytime soon.
Not too soon.
So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, honestly, I can't think of a better place to work. It's just a great place to work, and the people are amazing. So even the board, I really like
even the board. That's great. I love that you're an expert in both transparency and opacity, Debbie. So that's great.
That's right.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that, and we'll move on. If there's no other comments, we'll move to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on our consent agenda. Oh, yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Actually, I think, can we talk just briefly about the agenda planner? We were gonna, I think, talk about maybe the August meeting. So Dan, could you bring up the board agenda planner on the screen, please?
Thank you. Sorry, I was remiss.
And
we're talking about skipping the August meeting. We are required by our bylaws to do 10 meetings a year. And, as we already talked about, the finance committee won't be meeting again until October. It's usually a challenging meeting to get a quorum at as well. And there's not a lot on there. Can you scroll down to the August? Remember, anyone you can always click on the hyperlink that has the next meeting date, June 10th in this case, and you'll get here as well. So it's accessible for everyone. So again,
This is looking forward to the next fiscal year. And so, and the other change I would make is that, Dan, if you could scroll up to the June. So on this agenda item, or on this agenda planner, we were planning on doing a briefing on a rule update in June, but we've pushed that. Our recommendation is to push that out to July. So then we would have the rule hearing for basically some housekeeping related to our rules. We would do that in July, and then have the rule hearing in September, since we'll likely be skipping the August meeting.
All right, thanks for that. Any objections to this adjustment, these adjustments? All right, I don't think we need to take a motion on that, so we'll just plan on those two changes to the June meeting, and we'll change this to June and skip the August meeting. Okay,
So we'll send out cancellations for those calendar holds for you all.
Great. Thank you for the reminder, Jeff. All right, now I believe we can move on to the consent agenda. If I haven't missed anything else. And we've got the minutes for April 8th, as well as the expenditures and disbursements for April. Any questions or concerns? All right, hearing none, I'd welcome a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Yep.
Been moved by Dave, seconded by Mike. Any further conversation? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that is unanimous. And we'll move on to new business. I don't know, Jeff, are you going to tee this up? We're talking about the budget, which is we'll come back to, but it is open and live. So this is the first presentation to the board as a whole. So take it away, Jeff, to tee up or pass over to Tyson.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Again, this, as was mentioned during the chair report, Finance Committee has had a lot of discussions about the draft budget. Hopefully you all had a chance to take a look at it. But today is when Tyson will formally present it to you. So hand it over to Tyson.
Okay, exciting presentation about our budget. Bear with me here. So this presentation will be going over the broader aspects of ORCAA's fiscal year 2027 operating budget. I'll be covering the general fund balance, revenue and expenditures, budget challenges and priorities, ways we are reducing costs, key budget items, and then taking a quick glance at the budget timeline. So before we begin, I hope the board has reviewed the budget packet provided to you in the finance and board meeting email that was sent out. The budget packet does provide more detailed budget information. I won't necessarily be going over in today's presentation. Also, if you have a chance, I encourage folks to review the financial presentation given to the Finance Committee last month, since it does provide some context to this budget and the presentation. So although we are presenting a finalized draft budget today, we welcome any subsequent questions you may have after reviewing the budget packet or after today's meeting. All right, diving right into the budget numbers for fiscal year 2027. We are projecting total revenue of $2,972,182 and expenditures of $3,540,274. Resulting in a net operating loss of roughly $568,093. So I will be providing some more context around that net operating loss figure. And there will also be some time after the presentation to ask about that figure also. During fiscal year 2027, we will be appropriating funds to help supplement reserve funds and help cover costs made from the general fund. Appropriations include allocating $20,000 from the general fund for the Title V contingency fund, allocating $27,000 from the database fund into the general fund, and allocating $31,000 from the general fund to the office building reserve fund. Also, due to the actual database expenditures coming in lower than projected in this current fiscal year, we will be moving any leftover FY 26 database budget back into its reserve fund. The $20,000 Title V funds comes from its projected revenue for the fiscal year. Reserve Title V funds help offset any future reduction in AOP sources and prevents large increases in AOP fees paid by those sources. The $27,000 allocation from the database fund into the general fund will be used to cover ongoing services being provided by our database contractor and updating our database. Lastly, the $31,000 allocation from the general fund to the office building reserve fund will provide an infusion of cash to bring the building reserve fund back up to $100,000. The building reserve fund is used to cover any large capital expenditures related to the maintenance or improvement of our office building. Year-end fund balances can be viewed in the budget packet under the statement of fund balance statement. For FY 27, our projected revenue is $2,972,182. Of our total revenue, approximately $533,000 comes from grants, $1.5 million comes from fees, $594,000 comes from assessments, and $261,000 comes from other revenue. Grant revenue is made up of 5 distinct grants. The largest grant, known as the core grant, makes up roughly 43% of the total projected revenue. Grant revenue at $229,000 for fiscal year 2027. For the 25-27 biennium, we did experience a sizable decrease in our overall core grant funding of approximately $184,000 or $92,000 per year. Putting that in staffing terms, that's a decrease of 1 full inspector FTE.
Yeah, so if I could just add, so that's, we've talked about that, the state cut the state funded portion of our core grant by 65% for this biennium. So that's what that reduction is. And we've been working to absorb that and figure out what that means. And
keeping in line with past proportional revenue sources, our largest overall source of revenue for FY 27 comes from program fees at $1.5 million. And as you can see, that makes up 53% of our overall revenue for FY 27. Within fee revenue, our biggest revenue sources include AOP at $687,000 and annual registration at $440,000. And again, this detailed information can be viewed in your budget packet summary. Aside from AOP and annual registration, fee revenue is one of the most variable revenue sources for ORCAA, since it follows economic and market trends. Because of this, we take a conservative approach when estimating fee revenue for the year. So in those estimations, we take historical data, discount any sort of anomalies within that data, and adjust for any known market factors when determining its projected revenue. Assessment revenue are dues we issue to cities and counties within our jurisdiction. Assessments are authorized by RCW and are calculated based on population count and are inflation adjusted every year. Because assessments are based on population by jurisdiction, the amount of annual dues vary from entity to entity. Generally speaking, assessment dues for all entities costs less than 1 full FTE. So it's in my opinion, our entities whose stakeholders we serve, they're getting a great ROI on the assessment dues. Lastly, other revenue includes miscellaneous income, so rent revenue, investment income, and penalty revenue. Penalty revenue is the most variable of the other revenue sources, and it can experience large single source or cumulative swings throughout a fiscal year. So for example, this fiscal year, penalty revenue has exceeded its annual estimated budget by 173%, as of the end of March. And because of that, we treat penalty revenue similar to the fee revenue, when estimating its yearly projections. So we are careful not to overestimate both fee and penalty revenue when developing our annual budget. And that contributes to the large net operating loss that you see for this fiscal year or fiscal year 27 budget. And the reason why we do that is we don't want to overestimate revenue because that could result in unfunded expenditures for the year. Comparing FY 26 estimated revenue to FY 27 revenue, we see a drop in other and grant revenue and an increase in assessment and fee revenue. The drop in other revenue is due to a loss of a tenant, which occurred this fiscal year. And with that tenant gone, we now only have a 43% occupancy rate. And so for the folks that are new, we actually only occupy half of the building and then we rent out the other half. We are actively advertising the spaces and we have priced these spaces very competitively. But due to the low interest from potential renters, for this next fiscal year, I have accounted for only a 43% occupancy rate for FY 27. The increase in projected revenue for assessments and fees are due to adjustments for CPI and other fee increases the board has already approved this fiscal year. And then lastly, the 14% drop in grant budget revenue is attributable to the conclusion of the IRA grant, which was not renewed in FY 27.
And I just add that that was a one-time grant to pay for the new monitoring shelter, which many of you saw last month over in Lacey at the Mountain View Elementary School. Beautiful new monitoring shelter.
Total projected expenditures for FY 27 are $3,540,274. This is made up of approximately $2,775,000 for payroll, $441,000 for non-payroll, $110,000 for building maintenance, and $205,000 for program operations. As you can see by the pie chart, payroll makes up the majority of our expenditures at 79%. Included in the FY 27 payroll budget is a 2.8% salary wage adjustment, an increase of 6.1% employer pension contribution rate, and a 15% increase in health insurance costs. Non-payroll costs include costs which support the general operations of the agency. These include vehicle purchases, database upgrades, insurance, IT and hardware and software, and paper and pencils. Building maintenance are costs required for upkeep and security of the building, such as alarm monitoring, janitorial services, capital improvement expenditures, or other basic maintenance repair costs. Several larger costs we have planned in the new fiscal year include continued support for our database upgrade and the potential purchase of a new fleet vehicle. The anticipated cost for the continued database upgrade is $58,485 and $50,000 for the new fleet vehicle. Our last cost subcategory is program operations. Program operations are costs associated with our programmatic work. This includes costs for monitoring, wood smoke education and reduction, and ecology oversight fees. Larger budgeted costs within program operations typically have a dedicated grant funding source, such as the wood smoke reduction grant. These grants will reimburse the program direct costs, which may include both salary and benefits and other variable costs. When comparing the FY 26 budget to the FY 27 expenditure budget, we see a decrease in all cost categories except payroll. And the reason for that is the FY 26 costs were partially inflated, and those were really due to one-time large operating and project expenses, such as the roof replacement and the relocation of a monitoring station. Increases in payroll, as mentioned, are due to the proposed salary adjustment and of 2.8%, planned step increases and estimated increases in health insurance costs and pension costs. So the major budget challenges we see for next fiscal year are costs outpacing revenue, the potential for more cuts to state and federal core grant funding, and funding large capital expenditures. Ways we are addressing these budget challenges is by setting budget priorities. For FY 27, we ideally would like to achieve a cost neutral position for all agency fee programs. Achieving a cost neutral position would help us free up non-earmarked funds for unfunded needs such as public records requests, unfunded monitoring activities, or any customized work requests put forth by the board. Another top priority for us is the retention of staff. This is achieved through our competitive wages and benefits. Ensuring our wages and benefits remain competitive against industry standards and our peers helps reduce turnover costs, attracts outside talent, and prevents any sort of dramatic periodic increases in payroll. We also have a priority to ensure we maintain an appropriate level of funding for planned or unplanned capital improvement projects. Since we own our own building, making sure we have enough to cover large expenditures such as, again, replacing a roof or updating an HVAC system is very critical for us. Supplemental funding for property maintenance is funded through those non-earmarked funds freed up by achieving cost neutrality in our fee programs. In addition to capital improvement funds, we also see value in committing capital to fund systems which increase process efficiencies. A prime example of this is the current update for our database. So although it requires a large upfront outlay of capital, its improvement to process efficiencies will positively affect the agency for many years to come. The last priority of monitoring of revenue and expenditure expectations and restoring state core funding is a direct result of greater budget and funding uncertainties at both the state and federal levels. So for next year, I do see greater uncertainty through shifting top-down priorities. Because of this, I want to take a proactive approach and monitoring for any potential changes in funding will just allow us to be more prepared for those changes. So this slide just highlights ways we are reducing costs by increasing efficiencies here at ORCAA. So we still have not backfilled the financial specialist position, which just means more work for me, but also means less administrative overhead costs for the agency. The agency has also developed more informational resources. So that takes a kind of a more preemptive approach, informing the public on compliance and agency resources. The goal in these informational resources, such as how-to videos and informational flyers, is to reduce confusion and then allow the public to be more informed and allow for better planning. Our inspection team has also streamlined the outdoor complaint process by conducting less in-person visitations and responding more by phone, email, or direct mail. I would say this is a considerable process efficiency, considering our agency covers over 8,000 square miles with only 4 inspectors. So it's pretty big. The agency has also expanded its residential burn notification system. The free notification system now reaches all of our jurisdictions. It provides information on how to conduct yard waste burns safely and legally. It also provides partner fire agencies a way to communicate issues with the public regarding burning.
So the official rollout of that is going to be the opening of the burn season in October. So basically doing a lot of outreach around that right now, having conversations with fire officials and others so that when the fire safety burn bans are lifted next fall, this online residential burn notification system will be expanded to our other 5 counties. It's been in Thurston County for 20 some odd years.
23 or 24.
Right, so.
We're also making a concerted effort in digitizing source records, and that's to increase access and prolong attention for the agency for the records. And then also beginning this fiscal year, we started with our process of updating our agency database. So our database tracks compliance and permitting for all of the agency programs. The update will expand online permitting and reporting and also provide the public with data that they can look up themselves, which will reduce, hopefully reduce public records requests. The new database will also allow the agency to send required data directly to EPA electronically, which is a pretty big deal because it needs to be compliant for the EPA standards. And then, so there is a document in the budget packet that talks much more in detail about all of these cost reducing strategies. It's called the Agency Efficiencies and Innovations Report. And again, that is in the budget packet that was provided to you. So the budget summary included in the budget packet contains a very detailed list of proposed budget items, which have been incorporated in the FY27 budget. This is just a simple list of several key budget items included in that budget summary. For FY27, we're requesting a 2.8% salary wage adjustment, $50,000 for an additional fleet vehicle, $15,000 for a project position, which will be updating the agency SIP,
which is the state implementation plan.
$8,000 for ongoing support to OLIMAP, a $27,000 drop from the reserve database fund into the general fund to fund that ongoing support from our database contractor, and a $31,000 transfer from our general fund to the reserve office building fund. And again, I highly encourage folks to please review the budget summary report if you haven't already done so. And again, Jeff and I are open to questions after this meeting if you haven't reviewed it yet. So lastly, this is a timeline of remaining events for the FY27 budget. So on May 8th, we published the finalized draft budget for the public to review. And then May 13th, today, we are presenting the finalized draft budget to the board. And then on June 10th, we will hear any public comment regarding the budget, and we'll hopefully be adopting the consolidated operating budget for FY27. And then as a side note, Jeff mentioned this earlier, we did recently send out mailers to businesses informing them on the recent changes in fees too. So just more outreach regarding the budget. And that's it. So any questions?
Lots of information from Tyson.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate kind of the cadence in front of us, so this is already out to the public and we haven't received any public input, it is the time for it. We're going to have our hearing at our June meeting. So, most significantly, anything that, you have big questions about, or you think that maybe we're going down the wrong direction, this is the really the time where we can make adjustments. Oh, I see Joan has joined us. Welcome, Joan. Ryan, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was looking over the budget and you had budgeted about $150,000 for your new database, which is fabulous. I love data. But it looks like according to the year to date, which was taken at the end of March, you'd only spent about $15,660 on that. Are you expecting there to be a bigger bill coming at the end of the year, or is this going to be an ongoing cost into fiscal year 27?
Yes, so we anticipated more upfront costs, because this was a project that we thought would take at least a year. So for in this current fiscal year, we had budgeted $150,000. And like you said, we haven't, actual costs have not reached that $150,000 at all. So at the conclusion of this fiscal year, any sort of remaining budget attached to the database upgrade will be transferred back into the database reserve fund. And because of the ongoing, this project is ongoing, we do expect the cost to increase in FY 27. So in FY 27, we had budgeted, I believe, $59,000 of database expenditures. And if we do go over that $59,000, we will just pull from the reserve database fund.
All right, cool. Thank you. I was just checking that there's so much that can happen when it comes to rebuilding or building a new database. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, so everything seems on track with working with we're working with a company called Unicon, and it's going very smoothly. It's just taken a little bit longer, and they're ramping up a little bit slower in terms of working with us than we initially thought, but things still seem pretty much on track. I think at our next meeting, they're going to be giving us an updated timeline, but so the idea was that we would be able to launch first phase of this new database late this summer, early fall, and that still seems to be more or less on track. But so all moving forward, but yeah, just a little slower than we thought.
Sure, Greg, may I?
Yep, please.
This is Clark Gilman from Olympia. I just, as a set of fresh eyes, I just wanted to appreciate the level of transparency and the seeking more efficiencies and the clear presentation from Tyson. This is I'll be glad to bring this back to Paul, and I'm excited for the work you're doing.
Thanks, Clark, for highlighting both the transparency and the comprehensive presentation that we've had from Tyson. This is something that we've seen at the Finance Committee get more and more. You know, the explanations are really robust. And the analysis behind it seems quite sound. So, we've been very supportive at the Finance Committee. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Tyson? And just as a reminder, this is the last easy chance we have for big modifications if there is something that is not looking right. Yep, go ahead, Ryan. Yeah.
I was not wanting to take up all the space, so I was trying to give people other chances to speak up. In general, I guess some of my questions are more regarding any seasonality to our expenditures or the intake of money. Like, do we expend more towards the spring as we're ramping up towards a smoke season and there's more time people being spent outdoors, or are we just in general that seasonality?
Sure. Yeah, for as far as kind of cycles on the expenditure side, no. The only thing that I can think of is we do have an audit performed every 2 years, and that audit, so we budgeted $24,000 in FY 27 for that audit to occur. So next year, FY 28, we will not have an audit. That's one expenditure that runs through a cycle. On the revenue side, within a fiscal year, so we have some revenue sources such as our assessment dues, annual registrations, which we issue an invoice out for at a particular moment in our fiscal year, and then we kind of receive that revenue within a month or two when we issue those invoices. So we see a large increase in revenue. I believe that occurs midway through the fiscal year.
It is, so our registration invoices go out in August.
Correct.
So we typically get those kind of September, October timeframe. They then trickle in. But so that's kind of that timeframe. Then our other big influx is with our assessments, and those invoices go out in January. And so we'll tend to get that money in kind of February. So
are there any other cyclical kind of expenditures?
I see Mike nodding his head. You want to add?
Well, we definitely have expenditures from
a labor standpoint that you'll see peak in the fall when people start burning again. That's where you're gonna see a lot more labor come out of the outdoor burn program. Revenue, you see a lot more revenue come in, relatively speaking, to the asbestos program. You see that, and in the springtime, people are doing more remodels, more building through the summer, and then that slows down generally through the winter months. We don't see as many remodels, demos, asbestos work at that point. So we'll see a little bit of in the inspection side of it.
And then one other thing to add, Ryan, is on the payroll side. So we will be getting our new premium rates, which start in January. So midway through our fiscal year, and those go up. I've never seen them. So that's kind of another increase that happens periodic or kind of on a pattern midway through the year.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I was just trying to get an idea of how things flow through the year for you all. And I think does anybody else have any questions before I ask my last one?
No, we appreciate them, Ryan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was looking over I think it was the wood smoke reduction recycling. Is that part of the replacement of wood burning stoves with other sorts of heat pumps and things like that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I was just noticing that we do. Is there is there a cycle to that as well, where you don't do a lot of installations during the winter and you do more in the spring and summer when they're not as necessary? Because it looks like, again, you are budgeted 157,000 and only spent 51,000. And I don't know if that's because you're getting ready for that ramp up right now.
Dan, do you want to take that question?
I'll jump in since that's kind of my program. But yeah, we typically see more activity early fall as people start thinking about home heating. Late spring after people are sick of hauling wet, dirty firewood into their house all winter. Part of the reason we're a little behind on that because that's a biennial grant we get from the state, and we didn't get the contract signed until October. We didn't get it from Ecology early in the fiscal year, so we didn't start that project until literally November. So we're 6 months or 5 months behind schedule on that. Still, we see an uptick. We've got a lot of projects that are approved but not funded, so the cash out is a little different than what we've actually allocated to it. So my numbers and Tyson numbers are there's a little lag time between what I actually submit to Tyson for payout, but I think we maybe won't hit that full number, but anything we don't expend this year, it is a biennial budget, so that carries over into the next fiscal year.
Cool. Thank you. That was my next question. I was like, if we don't get to it all this year because we were late, does that mean we get more for the next year? So thank you for that.
Typically we would, and this is kind of a pattern that we see where Ecology is late getting us the grant contract. And so the first year of the cycle, we're a little behind, and then we catch up, and we have typically fully expended the grant. And I think this year it's roughly $330,000 for the biennium. We typically expend that by midwinter, late winter of the second year. And then there typically is a small pool of reserve funds at the Ecology that we can apply for additional funding. And I think 4 out of the last 5 cycles, we have got additional funding at the end of our cycle. So
awesome.
So the long term, that's my plan is next February to be asking for another small pool of money to complete the fiscal year next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think I'm actually out of questions.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you really were digging into it, Ryan. We really appreciate the attention. Okay, does anyone else have any questions or comments on the budget? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Tyson, for all the work and answering all the questions, and then making not only a complete presentation, but one also that was accessible enough for our new members to really dig in and ask some of these meaningful questions like Ryan brought us. So we'll move on to the policies and procedures manual. And this is, I don't know, is this still Tyson? He's doing lots of work. You're making it hard to hire that second financial staff member, taking all these extra duties on.
I thought I was making it easier, but. Okay, yeah, ORCAA is requesting approval of a proposed change to its use and use of technology section in its policies and procedures manual. The update improves clarity in the policy language. It also has added requirements for staff to follow password standards, provides examples of unacceptable uses of IT resources, addresses usage of non-agency devices, and states staff responsibilities as users of ORCAA IT resources. So just some context of why we're doing this policy update. So this policy update was really triggered by our recent data breach. The data breach made us revisit the existing IT policy and review it. And after we reviewed it, we determined that we needed to update it. So included in this update is a specific policy addressing third-party access to the agency IT network, which was the infiltration point of the data breach. So that was specifically addressed in our update. The policy now requires a review of staff who request, or the policy update now requires staff who request third-party access to the agency network to be reviewed by the IT systems administrator and Jeff.
So the default answer will be no, unless under very extreme circumstances,
Yep.
then it goes through some approval. But just essentially more eyes on process of giving an external party access to our internal systems.
And so our case with our insurance company has closed out. We ended up really on the right side of a bad situation. We incurred really besides staff time and heartache, we incurred no monetary costs. We got a full refund on that credit card charge, which was fraudulent.
There was the charge to the state auditor's office, which was,
That's correct.
I think, like $700.
There was a nominal charge to the state auditor's office because we had to report a loss of public funds to them. And so then they questioned Chris and I on processes and did a desk audit basically of the situation. So not included in the policy update is the use of AI. And I know that was brought up in conversations. We do plan on including an AI policy soon, which will just be an addition to the use of technology policy that we currently have. So keep a lookout for that.
Great.
That's all I
Thank you,
have.
Tyson. And we're just at the Jefferson County, just finally after 2 years, about to look at our AI policy too. So if you want copies from us too, happy to share that 25-page policy. It's a challenge for sure. It's a pervasive thing. Questions on this this red line version of the policies and procedures manual. And we are looking for approval of this today.
Correct.
If people are so inclined. So Ryan, did you come with more questions?
I did not. We're doing the exact same thing in my office. So like reviewing AI and doing all of that stuff. So it's no questions at all. I get it.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Thoughts, or if it looks great, then I would welcome a motion as well.
I move to what was it? I move to adopt the PMP manual update of IT policies.
Okay.
Second.
It's seconded by, was that Dave? So
Yes.
moved by Ryan, seconded by Dave Tobin. Any other conversation before we call the question? Okay, well, I just want to thank Tyson for additional work. This is great, really clear. I love the red line version. All in favor of the motion on the floor to approve the changes to the Personnel and Policy Manual, I'm sorry, Policies and Procedures Manual indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that is unanimous. Great. Good work, Tyson. And we're almost through your stuff. I guess you'll come back for the finance director's report, but I believe, let me get back to the agenda here, that we are on to director's report. So we'll pass it over to Jeff first for the executive director's report and then through the rest of the reports.
Okay,
Take
great.
it away.
Well, thank you, Greg. So just a few things to mention today. Last night, Dan Odell and I met with the city of Tumwater at a city council work session last night. Well, invited by Joan, I think, helped to make those arrangements. And so Joan, really appreciate the invitation to kind of give a general overview of ORCAA and the important work we do. Not only in Tumwater, but the larger regional area. So that was, I think, a really good opportunity. Also wanted to mention that I've in conversation with the directors of Washington's other 6 local clean air agencies, and we've agreed, again, we mentioned a little bit about the cut to our state core funding. And so we're looking at hiring a lobbyist to work with 7 local clean air agencies to help make the case of the importance of state funding for the work that local clean air agencies do as part of the State Clean Air Act. And so be moving forward with that in the coming weeks. Or I agreed to basically manage that contract with the lobbyist. So I'll be sending out kind of a solicitation. We don't have to go through a formal RFP because of the targeted amount, but and then we'll have interlocal agreements with the other locals who will all be contributing financially to this effort as well. But excited about kicking off discussions with legislators again about the important work we do and informing them, and so moving that effort forward. Also, just wanted to mention that I've been working with the Center for Government Innovation, which is part of the State Auditor's Office, and working to put together an offsite staff development day that we've picked Tuesday, September 29th. So we'll be doing kind of a strengths-based leadership team building exercise in the morning, and then working with them on developing a kind of introduction to lean and other process improvement tools in the afternoon. So still kind of working on that coming together. But again, the state auditor's office does offer these services free for local governments. So that's really nice. And I've heard really good things about other agencies that have worked with the state auditor's office on this effort. So I think that's it from me, unless there are any questions. If not, I'll hand it off to, I think, Mike doing the compliance manager update.
All right, well, the compliance packet was put in with everything that Debbie and them sent out. So when I'm done with the few little updates, if you have any questions on the packet, let me know. Excuse me, the couple updates I'd like to go over, the few I'd like to go over is we did have some complaints in Elma, smoke-related complaints, where the complainant also copied Georgia and Greg on. So I just want to address those real quick. And the complaints were in Elma. We've had some complaints from this individual off and on over the years. It's a small little development, and we did visit the site. We talked to the people burning. We did not see any signs of any illegal burning, no prohibitives. We didn't see a nuisance. So been addressed at this point, and we'll continue to respond as we get an opportunity. Not an opportunity, as we get complaints, we will respond when we have that opportunity to get out to those sites. We also, you might be aware, especially Greg, but Jefferson County Fire Marshal declared the first burn ban in our area, our 6 counties. And so that was declared on May 8th. So Jefferson County, there's no more residential or land clearing burn going on based on that until they lift the burn ban. But the 5 other counties are still going without any burn bans at this point. Want to call out our two supervisors, Jennifer DeMay, Rob Weiland. They attended the first time it's called the Big Group. It's the Stormwater Business Inspection Group. They meet on a quarterly basis. But they reached out to us, I believe, and then supervisors went and presented what ORCAA does, and there's definitely some cooperation that could be had there between the two groups. So that was a nice new group of people to network with so that we can help each other in our enforcements and our inspections and things of that nature. New equipment coming on board, so we will be attending that once the quarterly ones we'll do yearly, so that we can keep that fresh and find out what new rules we can part with them and they can give to us. Warehouse arraignment, I've talked about this in the past, I think, at least we've had it was part of our inspection for the county focus in Pacific County, but they have shut down their Title V facility, big facility, lumber mill. They've shut down their hog fuel boiler, which is a big emission point for, of course, lots of different emissions, because they are hoping and they shut it down, I believe it was Friday.
Yeah.
They hope by the end of May, they will have a new, smaller hog fuel heater that will be up and running to heat a continuous kiln. So instead of pulling their stuff out of a dry kiln and back and forth, they'll put it in on one side. They'll just keep loading it like a production line, and out on the other side will come the dry lumber. And I mention that because that is the first one that we have in our arena, our 6 counties, and first one Weyerhaeuser's put up here. They've done them down south a lot. So that'll be that's good for them, the investment in the community. It's good for the hog fuel emissions. Those will be a little bit lower. So that's a plus. And again, it's something new. Two more quick things. Half the staff completed CPR first aid training yesterday, so that's good. The other half was scheduled for November, I think, 5th. Jeff is very supportive of that. We bring in a fire department guy from, I think he's Black Lake. He might be Griffin McLean, one of the ones, but anyway, he's really good. He comes in and does it. He's been doing it the last few years. So we got half the staff trained and ready. Hopefully we never need to use it. And the last thing is, you mentioned the efficiencies for the how-to videos. The engineers have done their first one, and it's a how to fill out a gas station NOI, or basically an application for a permit for a gas station. So that's just a continued expansion of our how-to videos. We will continue to find areas that we think they can be most useful and make some more videos. So hoping to make some YouTube stars of our staff as we make these videos, and according to Dan, they have been well received. People have been on our site looking at them, so that's means that, again, that should help them get the process down sooner and easier without spending time with us on it so much. So some efficiencies built in there. All my highlights for now. If you have any questions or concerns on anything, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mike on the compliance report? All right, move on to Adele.
All right, Dan, can you pull up my slides, please? All right, thanks. So our air quality report for April, and maybe a little bit of May too, but next slide. All right. Oh, too far. Okay, so you'll see mostly greens or all greens across the board at all of our counties. These are the daily PM 2.5 summaries from all of our air monitors and sensors, including the SenseWAs that we have installed. So as that would be Forks, Ilwaco, and Yelm. And I just reached out to Ecology. We'll be getting 3 more SenseWAs next week, and Rob and I are going to meet later today to plan on where to deploy those, and that they will be deployed in Mason County, Jefferson County, and Grays Harbor. So then we will have 1 additional SenseWA in every county, and then we'll start on the second round. If you remember, the plan was to have 1 monitor and 2 SenseWAs located in each county. You'll notice, for those of you who are new, Clallam has a third site, Bahocus. That's our NCORE site, which is co-located with an improved interagency monitoring for protected visual environments. Monitors a lot of stuff up there, a lot of different species, but that's just the PM 2.5 and of course greens across the board. Last thing on this slide, Port Angeles, you'll see a lot of gray. We did have a sensor, or not a sensor, a monitor go down in Port Angeles in March. And we are running low on those sensors, so Ecology wasn't able to get us a new one until April, what is that, 24th, I think is when I went up there, or 23rd to get that installed. So that is now back up and running, and we have air quality once again in Port Angeles. Next slide. So we're also starting ozone season. We installed the ozone analyzer at the Lacey site. That's the orange line. We monitor ozone year round at the Bahocus NCORE site. That's part of the national core pollutants that we monitor there all year round. But ozone is a summer pollutant. But what I wanted to point out here is you'll notice that the top higher concentrations from the Lacey site tend to track with Bahocus. There are two very different chemical reactions or chemistry that controls the ozone at these two sites. I'm going to really simplify this very complicated chemistry down. But basically, you'll notice the blue line, that's the Bahocus, is at a remote site, very on top of a mountain above Nia Bay. And it stays pretty much between 30 and 45 parts per billion. But those peaks do tend to track with what we're seeing in Lacey. And that's because the ozone at Bahocus is transported there from urban centers. What's happening at Lacey is where the ozone is actually generated and made. And that relies on what we call ozone precursors, which are NO2 or NOx, NO and NO2, which are predominantly from burning fossil fuels. So automobiles are the main source of NO2. We also need VOCs. You'll hear us talk about volatile organic compounds. That's the complicated part of the chemistry that I'm not going to get into at the moment. But the NO2 is the important thing here, that when we add a lot of sunlight, so warm, sunny summer days, it breaks apart that NO2 into a nitrogen oxide plus an oxygen molecule. And that oxygen molecule then will really quickly attach itself to the O2 in the air that we breathe and turn itself into ozone. The VOC component locks up that NO, so it can't take it away again during the day. That's all I'll say about the VOC. Then at nighttime, all that NO that was generated, and remember, the cars are continuing to produce the NO, will destroy the ozone. So at nighttime, when the sun goes away, all the NO that's left will then react with the ozone there and go back to NO2 and oxygen. So that's why we see these huge amplitudes in the ozone at the Lacey site, whereas the ozone gets transported to Bahocus. There's no cars generating NO2 there to destroy it. It just kind of stays around the same concentration. So I think it's cool. Hopefully some of you thought it was kind of cool. If not, I didn't take too long. So that's why, and actually one other side note that I think is really interesting is that if you reduce NO in VOC when there's not very much VOC, you can actually increase your ozone because there's not enough NO left to destroy it at night. So the overall average could bump it up. I mean, that's just a weird little, not very applicable to most of our regions, which aren't limited. Next slide. Oh, unless you guys had questions about ozone chemistry. No, none.
Some people get PhDs in that kind of thing.
Oh,
yeah.
I had less of a question about the chemistry, even though I think it's interesting. I was wondering, can you talk more about how ozone is a pollutant? I was trying to tell it to my kid, and my kid had that question, and I was like, I actually don't know.
Ozone is an oxidant. It's extremely reactive. So when you breathe it in, and if you're breathing in a lot of it, it can create irritation in your throat, in your lungs, in your nose. It's also why we really strongly, I know we don't do indoor air quality, but you'll get air purifiers that are ionizers, but basically they're generating ozone in your house. And if you hang out while that's happening, you'll feel it. It'll start to really make you feel like you're getting sick. So that's why we like ozone up in the stratosphere where it blocks the UV light and prevents skin cancer. We really don't like it down here in where we're breathing it in the troposphere. Does that answer?
Oh, yes, that was great. So you're saying that the indoor air purifiers that aren't using like a HEPA filter, the ones that have like the ionizer, that creates more ozone for us then, yes?
Yeah, so if you like have a smoke outbreak in your house and you want to get rid of that smell, you can use that to react with the VOCs from the smoke, but don't be in your house while you're
Okay.
using it. You could try, and then you could turn it off and then give yourself, I don't know, half an hour for that to clear out because it's so reactive, it doesn't hang out that long. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure. All right, next slide. So just a quick summary of other monitoring happenings. We did visit Bohokus Peak in April. Rob went up there with me, did some general maintenance stuff, and I also got our annual report submitted to EPA, and that's for our grant. We have one more year left on our NCORE grant from EPA, and then we'll be applying for funding again for that for a new 5-year cycle. Some of you were there for the James P. Werner Air Monitoring Station dedication. That's our new station that Jeff mentioned out in Lacey, and that was a beautiful sunny day. Great time for everyone. We did clean the ozone lines, and we just had the audit from ecology at the site. We passed, so we are up and running. May is officially ozone season, so that data is valid and being submitted to EPA. We upgraded the data logger in Port Townsend to Air Vision. We also did Shelton yesterday. Rob went out and did Shelton, or actually last week while I was gone. So we are 100% now at Air Vision, no more of the old data loggers, which is just great. And of course, installed that functioning methylometer in Port Angeles. I also just want to mention, it's not on the slide, but last week I spent the week in Los Angeles at the Air Sensors International Conference. This is a conference all about air quality, low-cost air quality sensors like Purple Air, which many of you are familiar with, but includes all the vendors and all the new technology and all the sensors that are being developed, along with a lot of community actions and community science projects that were reported on. Air sensors that measure more than just PM, CO, other things. So a lot of thoughts there, and I will I'm still getting all my thoughts, a lot of great information, but I will present a little bit more about that conference at the next board meeting. And that is all I have.
I don't know if you saw Mike's comment in the chat.
Oh.
You always learn something new at ORCAA meetings. Nice.
That's great. Well, thank you, Adele. Thanks for the questions, and we'll move on to Dan and the communications update.
All right. So, a lot going on. I'll try to keep it brief. Jumping back into April, I think we mentioned in the budget stuff working with OLIMAP on homeless burning issues and the jungle. Jeff and I did meet with Intercity Transit and an interagency group mid-April after the last board meeting. I think it was a pretty productive meeting. And actually just yesterday we saw a note from OLIMAP that I think out of that meeting, Olympia has agreed to provide a larger dumpster for OLIMAP to do garbage collection at the jungle and try to reduce some of the load that may end up in burn piles if it's not removed in a dumpster. So that was really good news and a really good example of our partnership working out there. Let's see, I also attended a conference a couple of weeks ago. The National Tribal Forum on Air Quality was held up in the Tulalip area, and really beneficial to us. We have a lot of tribes we work with. The Quinault, the Makah obviously helps Odell with the Bohokus Peak. They host that on their property. I met with some of the folks from the Sklallam tribes up in Klallam County at the conference. and just had really good conversations about building collaborative partnerships with those tribes and making sure we're supporting each other in our communities. So, and it was well represented by Northwest Communicators. It was a national forum that was held in our region, so it was really good to get out and meet people from around the country and see what we're doing collaboratively. Last week was Air Quality Awareness Week. I know some of you and some of your social media staffs reshared some of our posts throughout the week. We started on Monday, ran through Friday. Looking at some of the analytics from that, we had really strong showings early in the week. Actually, next door, I think we were averaging 5 to 7,000 impressions a day. Facebook and Instagram, we were seeing about 500 on Monday, and that slowly declined to 250 to 300 impressions by Friday. I think people were, and this is something I have a meeting with the communicators, the Northwest Air Quality Communicators tomorrow, but we'll be doing a recap and review of what worked and what didn't. And I think people seeing those daily posts on the same format, they started to drop off in interest. We also know that use of those social media channels starts to decline later in the week as people fill out their week and get ready for the weekend. So focusing the most important messaging early in the week is a good example. This is an example of why we try to do that. Let's see, a couple weeks away, first week of June, we have another social media push, the Smoke Ready Week. And I mentioned this in the communications report. We're using basically the same templates we used last year, developed with our Echo Northwest Rhizome collaborative venture. Each day we'll have a specific message tagged to the word smoke. So Monday is stay informed, Tuesday minimize exposure, optimize your air, keep a plan, and ease your mind. So really following along that template and keeping people engaged. And that tends to get a lot of interest. Actually, EPA picked that up. They stole some of our graphics and messaging for their own Air Quality Awareness Week messaging on wildfire smoke. So it's nice that as their budgets have been cut and staff reassigned, that they're actually using the materials from the locals here. So nice that the message is getting out and it's being amplified nationwide from our small little community. So let's see. We also launched a social media training course with the Rhizome Collaborative as part of that Echo Northwest Northwest Air Quality Communicators Collaborative. So we'll be getting an update on that tomorrow. But again, it'll be an online self-guided training for social media use for agencies that maybe don't have a large communication team or a social media staff. It's something that anybody, so we can train people to establish or maintain their social media presence. Because the one thing we do know is if you're going to use social media, it has to be dynamic. You have to continually push out new content at least once a week to keep people engaged with your channel. We talked a little bit about the wood stove program earlier in the budget. That's going well. Should be seeing a ramp up now as the spring comes on and we're seeing 80-degree days. Yesterday, people are thinking about cooling needs as well as heating needs. So heat pumps are getting more interested. Had a good brief conversation after yesterday evening's meeting in Tumwater with representatives from Energize Thurston about partnering with them on their program and bundling our awards with some of their grants. So letting people get more bang for the buck there. So, and I think I'll that'll wrap me up. I think June again is Smoke Ready Week. I will be sharing the links with you late in May, right before we start Smoke Ready Week, and make sure you're aware of it and have the links to share those channels again.
Great. Thank you very much, Dan. Any questions for Dan?
This is Clark.
Go ahead.
Dan, I wanted to take the opportunity that you brought up the jungle to appreciate the years-long effort to negotiate that issue of a big burn pit there right next to Intercity Transit's 24-hour maintenance facility. And to say that another outcome of your recent meeting was that the city has contracted to do another full, like $125,000 cleanup to try to start again at zero and then redouble our efforts to try to discourage the burn pit. So.
Great. Well, that's great to hear. Because yeah, that's been a long ongoing issue, and partnerships are really important there.
Great. Thanks for the call out, Clark. Okay, we'll move back to Tyson. I don't know if you've got more in the tank, but I know you've talked a lot, but what's going on?
No, I'll wrap it up here. Got some good news. So we completed the re-roofing of our office building. It only took 2 days. So that is done. Check.
You did that too?
Oh, yeah, I did. No, I think we used Roof Doctors, and it went pretty smoothly, so.
Other than the nails that, so one staff member, Tyson, got a nail in his tire.
I'm the only person that got a flat tire, so anyways, I took one for the team. I've also been working for lawyers, for good government, through the Department of Commerce. And we are going to be taking advantage of the EV tax. It's a refundable tax credit for a fleet vehicle that's an EV vehicle, and then also taking advantage of the tax credit that's related to energy property investments. So I just received our draft return, and we're looking at a refund of $9,400. So that's pretty nice. Recently went through a Department of Retirement Systems desk audit of our 2025 payroll, and we're looking good. So that means we're not going to get an on-site audit by DRS, which I'm really happy. So that's it for me.
Great. Thanks. You did have more. All right. Well, we've, like the Finance Committee, we've made it through our meeting pretty quickly since there wasn't a lot of conversation around the budget. I guess we'll go to good of the order. I have one item for the good of the order that Jeff recommended I share just from Jefferson County's perspective. So, as you know, the 4th of July is coming up for I always forget how to say 250th anniversary of the country. So I can't do it. But in any event, Jefferson County has been kind of wrestling with fireworks for years. And as you probably know, those that have dealt with it, there's a very powerful fireworks lobby. So any more restrictive changes you make to local policy about fireworks take a year before they take effect. So we had made some policy a couple years ago where our fire hazard level, which is moderate now, as I guess Mike talked about, but if it goes to high, then fireworks are illegal in the window that they're allowed in the state of Washington around the 4th of July. And the same thing, if we did have a high fire hazard in January, the New Year's Eve window would be closed as well. That's worked okay. It's been a struggle to enforce since, fireworks travel across county lines very easily. And, so it's been a struggle, but has been moving forward. One of the other problems that we had is our initial infraction, our fine was $1,000, which is what it is at the state level as well. And that was high enough that I think it was a disincentive for law enforcement officers to give out those expensive tickets. And also our language was a little vague, not vague. It said possession or shooting off fireworks is what the infraction was for. So possession, transport, all of these things were not included in those fines. So we've made a couple changes this year, one of which is reducing the first offense to $250 and then $500 for violating local ordinances on fireworks. And that, because it is less restrictive, will take place this 4th of July. Then we've also refined or are asking for language on refining what those fines are for, whether it's possession and transport, or if it's exactly what it is. And that's more restrictive, so it won't take effect this calendar year, but a year from when we finally act on it. And then finally, we voted to ban fireworks throughout Jefferson County. And that is, in response to, I would say, the increasing fire danger. There's about half the folks are really in favor of them and see them as a symbol of an expression of their freedom. So they're very associated with the 4th of July. And, others are like us, where like the one time a year my livestock guardian dog sleeps inside the house is on the 4th of July and the surrounding days as she gets freaked out. And it's also, we've had, because of the high fire hazard for years, sometimes it's, after permits have been given to fireworks stands, that we end up banning it based on the actual climatic conditions, which is sort of abrupt and also difficult to enforce. So I just wanted to share, and last year, was good news. No houses burned down, only one garage burned down, but we've had multiple brush fires that have gotten close to houses already this year that precipitated that high moderate fire status that we're at now. So I just wanted to share that we are rare in Western counties, but are moving forward with banning fireworks in the unincorporated part of Jefferson County.
Just to add that fireworks are also very much an air quality issue. Every year, we see big spikes in all of our monitors on the 4th of July. So,
yeah. So if anyone's got any comments on that or questions, happy to address them. Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
So, just a little word of warning. When you do that, you will still have fireworks, but they will all be the tribal fireworks. And some of them are not Class C. It's an unintended consequence that most people don't take the time to be aware of. But they will not stop them. Your law enforcement will not be able to. Your law enforcement will not be able to stop them. They've got to, on a day like that and a time like that, they've got to prioritize, as you know, life, limb, and stuff like that. And instead, you're going to have worst of the worst fireworks because they're not being able to buy them at your store. I know it's not my barbecue. I'm just telling you that's my reality that I have to deal with, because I have several tribal stores on there that they all will go to right off the highway. And so it sounds good on the face of it, but the reality is it creates a worse problem. Just my 2 cents for you.
Thank you, Randy. And I will say I voted against this, though I'm not a big fan of fireworks or anything, but it's where we are, and already most of our fireworks come from tribal fireworks stands, which are illegal to transport off of the reservation in any event, but are most of the fireworks that are used on the consumer level. We'll still have professional fireworks shows, but that's a real barrier to that regulation too, where you have to, participate in 6 other professional pyrotechnic shows as part of going through that test. So recognize that, and we recognize too that it's an ongoing enforcement issue, and it's about changing culture, and there will always be some fireworks fired off during that time, but fewer and fewer. When we have had to ban them in the past, it's a significantly different impact. So we just hope that we prevent the structure fires and the risk to the environment. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
One of my favorites is LA banned them, and look at the videos of LA on the 4th of July night. I can assure you.
Yeah. No, I know. Port Townsend banned them years ago, and there's still a few fireworks lit off, but generally it takes a couple of years, but most people don't. They comply with that law. But I appreciate the input. Ryan, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was wondering how that was going to be. This interacts and with the tribes in your area, and I didn't know if you had any buy-in or had any sort of tribal liaison reaching out to them to talk about this.
We kind of talked about it already with Randy. No, we haven't done any government to government conversation about this. There are, of course, we're adjacent to Mason County and Kitsap County, and we've got Blinn right on one side. So there are certainly lots of opportunities for folks to bring fireworks in. It's super complicated, right? East Clallam County, many of those areas are kind of have restricted fireworks rules, I believe, and Mike can probably correct me on that. But so we have one place in Gardner in East Jefferson County that is known that there's 100 people there. The neighbors hate it, and it's all people from outside of the county that are coming to escape their own bans and then do these giant fireworks, consumer fireworks and tribal fireworks shows. And I don't know. It's complicated. It'll be years of responding in more and more proactive ways. I mean, to Randy's point too, we have 400 miles of road, and on the 4th of July, 4 to 5 deputies on duty. So, and they have to prioritize, of course, crimes that are, they've got to triage their responses as well. So, yep, it's going to be a slow roll. All right. Anyone else with anything for the good of the order? Okay. Great. Well, we'll get everyone a little bit of extra time. I don't think we have any need for an executive session. Just a reminder, June 10th is our next meeting. We'll have the hearing on the budget. You can always click on that link as well to get into the agenda planner. And as a reminder, we will cancel the August meeting. And I think that's everything for now. So thank you, everyone. Good work, Tyson. We are adjourned. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month.
Everybody, thank you.